So thank you all for your time. I'm going to kind of move along quickly to make up for a few lost minutes here. Kempton, Izuno, some of you I've flown with, and some of you I know, and others I don't, but it's always better for me if I find more people in the room who don't know me than do know me, so that's good. But I want to talk about today here is something about my latest flying, and also really to talk about what brings us to do what we do in this sport. And it's not going to be a therapy session, but it's going to be just, talking about some things. We'll talk about a little bit about what motivates me, talk about these particular flights here. These are ones I've been doing out of Williams and some other places in California. A little bit on equipment, because there are some nuances here, and then some Q&A. All right. Background, I've soloed when I was 14. I've had a LaBelle and then an ASH 26E, and about 15 years ago, I bought Rex's share in the Phoenix, which is the restoration project for an ASH 25, single canopy ASH 25. At first, I got into it because I thought, oh, a little bit more performance. But after a while, I realized what I really enjoyed was mentoring. So I liked being in the back seat. Even when I was back in my club in Hummingbird Haven in the 70s, I liked to be in the back seat of a K7. So, see, I was a Schleicher guy even then. So, I've been up with about 120 pilots in Phoenix. Most of them have gone well, if you have not, but you learn these things as you go along. And my home base, as I mentioned, is Williams. Obviously Rex is and Noel are the dealers for Schleicher, and plus he's the one who restored the plane. So it's really nice to have the guy who did the work, on this custom job be right there. Although it was so long ago, he's now looks at it sometimes and goes, I can't remember what I did there. But to back that up, one of my partners sold his shares to Danny, the guy who runs the repair shops. And Danny approached me about this. I'm thinking, oh my God, to have the repair shop guy as my partner? I mean, what better thing could you ask for? So I'm very happy about that. If you've never been to Williams, fantastic place. It's got actually very good weather conditions, pretty much year round. Not as big as the Sierras in Nevada, but there's a lot we can do there. And what's been fun about flying there is to push the envelope of what we can do. There we go. So what drives me? I am basically a wave nut, as I like to call myself. Well, you can't see the bottom here. It's copying. Oh, well. Won't have too much text down there. And I really enjoy cross-country wave. That is what's really been driving me. I did some time in the Sierras, but to do it out of Williams and to do it with somebody else, in the plane is really what gets me going. This is a collection here of different cross-country wave flights out of Williams, Rami, myself, Morgan Hall. So we've been steadily pushing the envelope of what you can do in terms of flights, almost up to about 1,000 kilometers. And covering some pretty unique territory. When you do wave cross-country, how many here have flown wave in the Sierras? Okay, how many of you have flown wave other than the Sierras? Okay, good. So to me, what it comes down to, is there what I call trustable lift? And I'm showing my age here, but you remember that Life cereal ad where the two kids are saying, I'm not gonna try it, you try it. No, I'm not gonna try it, you try it. Hey, let's get Kempton to try it, he'll try it. Hey, this is pretty good. So that's I figured out that's kind of my role in the little Soaring ecosystem, is just to try this stuff, So, and then obviously if it's repeatable, which is what I like about wave, is that then you can go back to those points and continue on. Obviously, we like it closely spaced. The best thing is for it to be continuous. It's interesting to talk to thermal-only people because they go, well, what about that 8 and 10 and bazillion knots I hear about in the Sierras? I go, yeah, that happens. But what you really want is continuity. Because if you could just go, if somebody told you, I got a line for you of just 2 knots, I will take that over the spiky 18 knots here and there, because what you're looking for is trust and continuity, so you don't have to sit and do that silly circling stuff like we do in thermaling, right? Think about it, right? So, and obviously we'd like to have it long running, something where you can make some hundreds of kilometers or longer. So why am I doing this? I'll tell you why I'm doing this. Because I want to do something big before I can't. I found this picture when I was searching I searched rocking chair and aviation, and this is the first one that came up. And I thought, this is perfect, because if I'm one of those guys, I want to be able to sit there and go, oh, Fred, you remember that 2,000-kilometer flight? Oh, God, that was awesome. I almost died, but it was awesome. That's what I like to be able to say. And to me, one of the biggest things that I have learned as I get older is I want to minimize regret. I mean, I do have some things I regret, but minimize it, especially in soaring, right? And because if you're sitting there, and I've talked to some older soaring guys that said, I wish I would have done this or that. And especially because good days don't come that often, you really want to make sure that happens. Now, yeah, I know there's the job thing and the retirement thing and the family thing, and yeah, we've got to take care of those too, because that'll create other regrets if you don't take care of those. But once I have those in a reasonable state, I want to be able to have something that I really think is really cool, and I like sharing that with you all, and think back on, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And you can do this too. That's my message here. I mean, I'm going to go into technicals of the flights and all, but I want you all to know that the biggest issue I find with soaring pilots is they don't think big enough. Someday I do 750 or Rami, I'm not just saying myself, or Jim Payne back there, others, do something big. Oh, you might land out. Well, you got to plan for that, and there are books about that. But if you can do this, you will sit there and go, wow, that was just amazing. On the call here is a gentleman, Russ Pollard. I think, Russ, sorry if I hack it up, but I think he started in his late 70s, power pilot, has a 27 right now, and it's been neat to see him expanding his envelope, what he can do. You can do this. Age is not a barrier. Might slow you down a little bit, might not be able to last as long, but you can do this. All right, so let's jump into the topic here. I've flown the Sierra Wave quite a bit. I see Cindy here, who was one of my observers and helped me when I did my 1,000-mile flight back in 2004, which at the time was a really long flight. And thanks to Gordon and Jim and the rest of them, it's kind of like, well, that's table stakes, man. Okay, but back then it was pretty cool. But after a while, I kind of felt like the Sierras were like essentially a railroad track. It's single dimension, and there's the ends of the railroad track, and you basically go back and forth in it, And if you've not flown the Sierra Wave in cross country, you should do it. It is amazing. But by about the 5th year of my doing that, I'm going, I want to do something else, okay? So that's what led me into thinking more about what I can do out of Williams. We've pretty much all seen these graphics here for Wave. And one of the things, though, that I have noticed lately is this. And what this is what happens when the wind speed drops low enough, the wave can be almost on top of the ridge line. And this is not just small hills. I actually had 2 saves in the Sierra where I am facing, I think this is Olancha Peak. And I'm like 2,000 feet below Olancha Peak, and it looks like I'm flying right into all this rock is filling up my screen. But there's a lift, and I just go right up the backside, and it was the weirdest thing, and it worked. And so the reason I point that out is because I've had now numerous times where, and I'll talk about this on a couple of flights, where the wind speed is low, but the lift is good. And it's like, oh my God, this is great, Capital appreciation and interest income. Oh, this is awesome. So that's what I've been kind of looking for, these situations where it's not screaming 80, 90 knots, because then, of course, you have to crab more into the wind. And I don't know if anyone here has flown with me in Wave. What's my #1 rule in Wave? ABC, always be crabbing. Because, if you're thermal pilots, you'll just point to where you want to go. And my favorite story about that, and he's not here, is Rami. He landed out in Bridgeport at 8 o'clock in the morning because he wasn't crabbing in the Sierra Wave. So, I mean, Rami's a great guy, incredible pilot, but I always like to, kind of poke him with that one. So I want to cover my tasks. These are my personally declared tasks, and what do they say? If you're going to better achieve your tasks, make it public. That way people hold you accountable. So these 4 flights here, so let's go through each of these. Not all of them start at Williams. Okay, so let's cover each of these tasks here. So the first one is from Williams. This is in an offshore wave flow situation, and to be able to go up north towards almost Eureka, there's a little airport near east of that called Hoopa, and then come down the coast and hit San Diego. And there's a little part of this that I've got a bench of 3 co-pilots, and I said, oh yeah, then we can climb to 18,000. It's at Santa Paula, and we'll turn tail and we'll tag Catalina on the way into Oceanside. And they just look at me like, what? I said, I've done the math, and Catalina will be our safety airport. But but I think this can work. We got some margin here. So, and then apparently there was some Vacaville-based, ocean ditching session, and one of my co-pilots said, hey, I think we should attend this. Okay, yeah, okay, fine. But it's not going to happen. Point is that when you have this offshore flow, then the coast range becomes the trigger for the wave. And we have actually, in that previous graphic, we have actually explored all of the extent from pretty much Big Sur up to Eureka. It works. We got the waypoints in. It's pretty well defined. When you get south of Big Sur, the challenge is going to be getting from Big Sur to about Saint Ynez. Because the ranges get lower there. And Rami last year, this is the setup here, offshore flow, a cutoff low. In the lower right corner is the cutoff low, which is what I look for. The good news about cutoff lows is that they enable these kind of situations. The bad news about them is because they are a small weather feature, small being like 500-600 miles across, they get pushed around easily. So you can't really get confidence in the setup until like 24 to 48 hours ahead of time. But when they work, they are just fantastic. So this is a trace of Rami's flight when he flew this task January 12th, I believe, 21st, last year. And he was able to get down to Saint Ynez. It was a little touchy around San Luis Obispo, but then he was able to get up, but didn't quite connect to be able to then get over to, get further east and south. One of the ironies of this thing is that at the time I was in Hawaii, family trip, got to take care of that side of the equation too. And then when I did my reverse Sierra flight of a week ago, he was in Hawaii at the time. I really like to have Rami with me, because at least there's somebody else you can, commiserate with when you're both trying to figure out what to do. But, he's a good strategist and just a great pair flying pilot. So the point here is it's doable. We just have to get, all of the chips in our favor here. But on all of these tasks I've listed, these are all sections of them have already been proven. Right? Second one is from Williams up to a place called Buckhorn and then south to Yuma. Okay, this would be about. Is Gordon in the room? There he is, okay. So he currently holds a record now, I think it's 701 miles. So if I go up to, there's this little ridge west of Redding, and I've flown the wave up to there in the northwest wind, and if I just go, start a mile to the north of that, and then hit Yuma, I'll get an extra mile for, getting that distance. That's what records are for, even if it's only by 1 mile. The cool thing about this flight, though, is this is something we do probably more like in March, April, because then you want to have the cumulus in the valley. It would be a post-frontal day, but you have this straight down the Central Valley tailwind, a northwest tailwind, not usually too bad, 15 knots or so, but obviously helps move you along. So this wave here I don't think there's a formal name for it. I call it the Gorman wave, or there's a little strip called Quail Lake there. It's very common for that to have wave. In fact, it's so common that a lot of power pilots who don't know their weather try to fly out from LA, and then they get smashed by the sink there, and you can look up numerous NTSB reports, and they don't take that into account. The flip side of that, though, is that you can hop from the Bakersfield side over to that, connect with the wave, and climb up, which is what Rami did on this flight here from Hollister back in 2009. I've been watching this setup for a while to be able to start this, but from Williams, because it's quite doable. Got to 18,000 feet there in the Quail Lake wave, went downwind. I think I got a second climb at San Jacinto, and then hit Yuma. Okay. That flight was a little over 800K. So again, the key points on this are proven. We just got to start a little earlier and a little further north. Okay. And these are just some of the forecast charts from that day. This is a pre-SkySight, so just using Dr. Jack's charts from that day. A good wind there, about 25 knots or so, but there's a fairly small window for this, like I said, late March to early May, because once you get past there, then not only do the fronts not come through, but then of course things warm up more and also stabilize the valley, Central Valley. Third flight, this is the one I did about 10 days ago. This is what I call the reverse Sierra flow. So we're all familiar with when there's a prefrontal flow southwest and it hits the Sierra, it goes down the backside, kicks up, and you get that beautiful black and white picture that I showed you. I think that was yours. Was that your black and white picture earlier, Gordon? Okay, well, I think it was yours. Anyway, so, but the point is that that's the classic Sierra wave that everyone knows about. What I'm talking about is when you have the wind coming the reverse way from a offshore flow. And this was the 700 millibar chart from last Sunday it was? Sunday or Monday, about 10 days ago. And you can see the flow here is not that much. I mean, it's on the Sierras, it's like 35 knots or so at 700 millibars, 40 knots, but it did not increase with altitude. It just kind of stayed that, at 18,000 feet, you'll actually see some screenshots in here, where it was like, 36 knots. And so it actually wasn't much. So, but the key thing is that the sky sight here had this relatively continuous line, and we've seen this before at Williams. If you look at our thread, we've talked about this over the years, and once again, even the guys with motor gliders. My glider does not have a motor. I used to have a motor glider, but I don't now. And they're looking at that going, oh yeah, we should try that sometime. These guys, come on, you got these motor gliders. You need to get out and, do something with that stuff. Make that asset get a return for you. So anyway, I'm sitting here thinking, oh God, this is really looking good. I need to try that. So this is our flight trace here. From that, we got down to about South Yosemite. And as I mentioned, these cutoff lows, the forecast keeps changing more so than normal because they're a small weather system. Secondarily, we also needed to tow to about 13,000 feet because when the forecast was declining, as you may or may not know with wave, when it's stronger generally, it can go lower down in the atmosphere. But when it's lighter, there can be this case where basically you can't engage it until higher. And this is different from the Perlan egret situation where they had the tropopause there, but it's a similar effect, kind of like, I know it's up there, but I can't get to it, So fortunately, Nick Mays just casually said the day beforehand, oh, I need to put a tow hook on the 180, let me talk to Dad about that. And, then I can just take you to 16,000 feet if you want. And I said, Dad, if you do that, I'm going to call it the mini egret. That's what we're going to call it, So, and sure enough, he did, and so the next morning, it dawned here. This is Williams looking east. You can actually see the fog there, which often happens, but fortunately not at Williams. And there's some kind of Lenny-ish stuff out there, but I knew it would dry out because that was part of the forecast. So we're getting ready here. My co-pilot, David Maruzzi, and oops, I'll go back here. And so then we took off and we towed over to Lake Orville, east of Lake Orville, where the forecast closest lift would be. And yeah, we got to about 13.2 and released there, and sure enough, about 1 to 2 knots, and we start working our way up and working our way up. And wow, now you can have all the forecasts in the world, you can have all the experience in the world, but when you're doing something new like this, I'm still sitting there thinking, God, what if this doesn't work? I mean, yeah, I know I can just go downwind to Williams and all, but still, that was a $230 tow, I mean, I don't want to just blow this stuff. So anyway, but it worked. And so we start nosing our way south, and we're, the hand of God has not slapped us yet, and kind of working around going, hey, this is all right, past Lake Tahoe, south of Lake Tahoe. Then we get, that we're on tow here, sorry. And about to release, and you can see there's not too much snow there east of Lake Orville, a little bit there, but it just kind of felt weird to not have this steep slope in front of you, And so I'm going, okay, trust the models. Now here we are, that's Lake Tahoe in the background, and we're basically, I call it, when you're in wave, you're just kind of sliding along, right? You can see our nose is pointed, somewhat into the wind. The wind's coming from Lake Tahoe towards us. And, it's going along, 1, 2, 3 knots, we're following. I fly with navigator on my iPhone. That's my primary computer in the back seat. I'm going to get an LX9000 solely for the reason of overlaying the SkySight wave bars there, but I didn't have it yet. And if you know Navigator, it will only show you the wave bars if and information if it's you're in contact with a cell system. Well, obviously up at altitude you don't. So I had David, I said the night before, just get me some waypoints, because it doesn't seem to be moving. Just do a CUP file, I'll load it, and we'll just go from waypoint to waypoint. So that worked out actually okay. So now we're south of there, and we're working another stronger spot, and he says, what are all those cars down there? So this is, if you recognize the area, right, a few more seconds, right there. Upper right, that's the Bear Valley Ski Resort parking lot. So that was kind of the elevation contour, if you will, as we were going south. About that part, where there's more significant snow, if you've ever been there, Bear Valley, it has lifts going down from the parking lot and lifts going up from the parking lot. So that was, because he's going, God, look at all those cars there. So that was just kind of this interesting curiosity. Keep going south here, and now we're flying over Yosemite. And so that's Half Dome there. And I've never flown over Yosemite. I think maybe once I did in thermals a long time ago. But now we're crossing at like 17,000 feet, going, wow, this is amazing. There are those times, I'm sure you've all had them in soaring, and you're flying and have certain views as you go, I can't believe this. This is incredible. So we keep on going along the forecast line, which is kind of slightly to the left here, and then we hit some sink. And I said, okay, well, by this time it's about 110, 115. I'm thinking, well, we should probably turn around, anyway. You can see the deeper Sierra down there, and actually it was forecast to be stronger down there, and I actually regret now not going back down there. I said the R word. So I need to do this again. Get down there. Lake Isabella is my final target for 1,000 K, but on this flight, I can't remember what it was. I think I wanted to get up to Lassen or so on the return leg. Anyway, so we turn around, we come back, and then one of the things I've learned in hunting around when you don't really know where the wave is and you're exploring new territory like this, is I come back and then I hit some unusually strong lift, and I go, okay, you know what, I bet you we picked the wrong line, so let's try a little bit more downwind. Because rule number 2 is always stay upwind. When in doubt, stay upwind, because you can always go downwind, right? The reverse is very costly. So we go slightly downwind, and then we continue heading south. And the line was pretty much like right over Half Dome. And about 10 miles further on, all of a sudden the list get 2 knots, 4 knots, 10 knots, 18 knots. I'm going, oh my God, this is incredible. And the good and bad news is, David later reminded me, he said, Kempton, you said to me, it's kind of like you're just, you're groveling around trying to find a low-wage job, and then all of a sudden you get a middle-class job, and all of a sudden you're making more money, and all of a sudden you're making so much money, everybody wants to kill you. And that's what happened here, There have been times, I'm sure the other wave pilots in this area, you've seen 30-knot lift or so. That doesn't last long because you're going to get blown through, 18,000, or for the lucky few here who can go higher than that, great. But look at the winds there, 0.75 at 36 knots, I'm going, that's the kind of thing, we're experiencing all day, And for those of you who have dealt with this, I just point straight into the wind, push it up to max TAS for the altitude, and I'll just hold it and say, I think we can get out of this, and if we don't, I ain't posting this flight. So, and you look at the trace, because it's posted, we missed it we were under by 27 feet. So we're good. So we turn around, and then we head back, and as we're recrossing Yosemite Valley, I go, hey, look at that. That's Yosemite Falls. It'll come into view here on the right. And I'm going, oh my God, that is just fantastic. You see that there on the right there with the snow at the bottom of it. It's like, and you can kind of see in this, the water falling down. And I go, I've never seen a waterfall from altitude like that. So again, it's just stuff like that. You're just going, I am just the luckiest guy on earth at these times to be witnessing stuff like that. So then we worked our way back to our start point and tried to connect further north, but by this time the wind had weakened. I have this written up in much more detail on the Williams site. So we wind up landing, and we're back at the airport, and once again, just thinking, oh my God, this is fantastic. Quick few words on my bench. I have 3 pilots. This is David Maruzzi, Michael DeMeyer, and Drew Pierce, who I've flown with numerous times, and basically these are pilots who, they're good sticks, they remain calm, they are good strategists, and they will also be able to last long because these do 10, 11-hour flights is my plan, and they will also call me on my SHIT if I decide to do something a little bit more spontaneous, which I have a tendency to do at the furthest point and go, hey, I think we can go a little further. Well, that's not in the plan. Yeah, but I can see a cloud there. We should turn around now. So they're very good about that, which is great, because I can get a little carried away sometimes. So anyway, so that was just fabulous. And so these 3 pilots, I rotate through them, and they're, sometimes they'll be crew. Like when I went out to Idaho last year from Williams, Drew drove on that flight. The last one here is out of Avanal. I've been flying out of Williams pretty much exclusively because the trailer wasn't in great shape, and a 25 is a bit of a logistic lift. But then Rami, of course, which I count on my friends to call me on stuff, he goes, Kempton, you could be doing much better if you just get that trailer working, you could go to places. I go, you're right. So I spent last season just getting the trailer going, which I think, all of you too, get your trailers going so you have more confidence in, either retrieve or going someplace else and flying from there. So this one here, I tried this flight actually with David McMaster, the pilot on the junior team, because he was spending some time out at Williams last year. And so I said, hey, David, why don't you be my co-pilot and we'll go down to Avanal, and Drew was crew, to be able to run this flight. And this was the task, basically. Avanal, run up the Tembla Range, down to San Bernardino's, down to Mexico, and come back. I mean, super ambitious. We didn't even get past Taft. And if you know where Taft is, it's only like, about 40 miles south of Avanal, 50 miles south of Avanal. What happened? So I was talking with Matthew Scudder about this, and because I say, God, it looks so good, but it just, it didn't really work. And so his comments, if you're in a session about soil, being dry, and so therefore, obviously during the drought, maybe it heated up more, so there's more instability, which, didn't help the wave any. I don't know. For me, I think I understand those weather factors reasonably, but still, to me, a lot of times it comes down to, is it really cold or not? And if it's cold, then maybe it's just me personally, spiritually going, oh, well, this feels like a regular wave day, so it's got to be good. We're going to try this. Right now, there's a setup probably for next Monday, a week from now, or 10 days from now, where this might work. So the window for this, I figure, is about the next month or so. So if you hear me doing this, it's only going to be within the next month or so, okay? And Garrett, I don't think he's here, but David McMaster put me in touch with Garrett because Garrett was describing a lot of the nuances of the wave down in the Palm Springs area and San Bernardino, so that was very helpful. So, and again, this had been pioneered. Both Morgan and I did a duodiscus run a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, but also Zach Yamauchi has also been running up and down, learning about the Tembler wave. And then Morgan has crossed over from this to the Sierras and worked the Sierra wave in the Owens Valley and then got back to Avanal, that was quite something to do that. Quick comment on the equipment. I use these Savior gloves on the left, but for some reason I had 2 right glove battery failures, and so I still am troubleshooting that. And then there's socks. So the top one is the Savior sock with a 2.5 amp hour battery, and it's okay, but you gotta reach down there. And for my front seat pilot, because it's narrower in the nose, he couldn't reach down there to either change the batteries or activate it easily. So we've got the second sets of socks here. The middle one is a Bluetooth controlled enable sock. Now, there are sentences that the modern world has you say that you never thought oh, I need to control my socks. Let me get my phone out. So, but hey, that's how things are. And so they've got that. We got bigger batteries. You can see the batteries for that one are bigger. Again, all this detail is on the Williams forum site. I can't even remember the name of that middle one. But anyway, so we've gone through sock testing. And then as regulators go, make sure that you have your oxygen. But what I didn't know about a standard EDS regulator, it only goes down to about 400 or 500 pounds. That lasts, if you get this super duper regulator, it'll allow you to go down to 20 pounds, So now for me, for 1,800 pound bottle, that's quite a significant gain. So I've got a pair of those. We got 2 bottles in Phoenix. More on this, I had an article published in Soaring about this, and I'll be at the Williams booth later on if you want to chat about this. More importantly, it would be great to have you as pair-flying pilots, to have any of you, even if you only go on part of the flight, be with us, because it's just to me, it's just such a cool thing. And I think there's a majority of you out here have motor gliders, and so, you have no excuse, 1,000K minimum for you guys. So let's remember, fly big before you can't. Thank you.